Hi, I'm Father Matt Strabel, a theology instructor at Fenwick High School, and welcome to my short presentation on student web presence. The first question I really came to my mind when I looked at this assignment was, why do I need a web page? And the answer I came back with initially was perhaps not the one my instructor wanted to hear. It's ultimately you don't. You don't need it. But like with many things, like computers, Xboxes, cell phones, and air conditioning, they're things that we don't necessarily need, but they make modern life a lot more convenient and can be a heck of a lot of fun. In many ways, it's the equivalent of a modern equivalent of a business card, a resume, or a curriculum vitae. It's a great place to showcase your abilities in writing, art, web design, or other things I probably haven't even thought of yet. It's a place to let other people with similar interests find you, and it gets your name out there as well. And it can actually be a helpful part of a college or job application. It's a great place for people to go find a wonderful message that you focus and you craft on who you are, what you're great at, and why you deserve a particular job or a admission into a particular skill. And just the practice of building a web page is a marketable skill. So it's a great, and in many ways, it's also a fun thing to do. So let's kind of dive in, and when people talk about, well, what goes into a web page? Pretty simply put, you have a home page. The landing page is like, hi, welcome to my web page. You have a little bit of about me. So some general information about yourself, and for most adults, how to contact you. We'll talk about modifying some of those ideas for web safety for minors and students. Also have it's a great place to link in your other media outlets, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, whatever. And then, of course, you want a space where you're showcasing your stuff, your art, your writing, things like that, the stuff that makes you you. Before we kick off, just a few words about online safety. It's one of those things that we have to talk about in our modern age. There's plenty of nice people out in the world, but there are some who are not so nice. There are, in fact, people out there who are financial, emotional, or sexual predators, and it pays to be a little bit wary about that. Also, the other side of it is what we put out there, we have to think about it because, as we say a lot, the internet is forever. And that same face that you're presenting to the internet and to the world, you want to make sure you're putting your best face forward and not putting out things that will be a detriment in later life. We said the internet is forever. For some further suggestions on cyber safety, some details on this, you can visit this site at slideshare.net. So part of online security is your passwords. These are things you've heard before, but they bear repeating. Passwords should be at least 8 characters long, include both upper and lowercase characters, should have at least one number and one special character in them. And this is one that all of us break way too often, but don't use the same password for everything. It leaves you in a situation where if they get your email account, they also have your bank account. And change your passwords regularly. Sometimes our business and schools sort of force us into that by requiring it, but it's good to update them periodically just to maintain our security. Towards that end, I personally have found that password managers are helpful. Either Google's native password manager or something like LastPass, which I use to manage a lot of my online passwords. Once you get more than 4 emails, it starts getting a little bit confusing as to what's where. Again, some of these are free services, some are paid for. LastPass has both versions depending on the features. And just make sure that your key password certainly meets the criteria. You don't want to put 1, 2, 3, 4 or just your pet's name in there for that. With regard to social media, it's best to remember that it is by nature a public forum. So public means it can be seen by anybody. And anything that can be seen can be copied and shared. So again, don't say or show something that you wouldn't want to have on a t-shirt that you're wearing at school, church, a job interview, or to visit your grandmother. Further, assume that anything you share online can and will be seen by everyone. Again, there are some things we hope were just shared between some people, but all it takes, even for media that is sort of self-destructing, like Snapchat, do a screen capture and it's there. So don't assume any anonymity. And think about the fact that years from now, when you're applying to college or for a job, people will Google your name, and they'll be able to see just about everything you've posted. So, while it may have been a fun night out, you might not want to show that picture of you, swimming in Buckingham Fountain. Doesn't always go over best with the powers that be. Word about strangers online. As we mentioned before, not everyone out there is who they say they are. Most people are, but the most dangerous ones are pretending to be someone uh, usually younger, sometimes different gender, sometimes different interests. So a little bit of healthy suspicion is a healthy thing to have. On top of this, particularly for my students, and I probably should go for adults, never give out your address or agree to meet someone who you don't know in person. You're basically setting up a meeting whether you want to meet them or not. Um, Never tell anyone whom you don't know where you go to school or where you go after school. Again, just basic self-care. Unfortunately, cyberbullying is a real problem as well. If someone is being cruel or insulting to you, block them. Don't engage with them. Bullies always feed off the resistance. So playground advice, just walk away. Same online. If you are bullied, save the evidence. There's always a tendency to delete embarrassing or frustrating stuff, but it can be helpful, particularly if things escalate later. So save it. If things get really bad, it goes with cyberbullying or anything else in life. Talk to an adult who cares. Ask a close friend to help you talk to an adult, because there's sometimes an adult perspective is necessary to sort some of these things out. And again, just some things to think twice about. Don't post any images of you doing something stupid that you know your parents or teachers or grandmother would not approve of seeing. Think twice about engaging in rude or bullying activities yourself. Sometimes we think, oh, it's all online. It's not the same as saying it to their face. It's just as hurtful. Don't think that the anonymity or the distance of the computer makes it any less so. Think twice about sharing anything you want to keep private, because people will talk, people will share things. If it's on the internet, it's probably going to be public. One final point of modern online security is the subject of sexting, the transmission of sexually suggestive or explicit messages or images. Let's just say, from the perspective of Fenwick High School, it's in poor taste, it's immoral, and it's hurtful to others. Again, some people might think it's intimate, some people might think it's fun. It's a very dangerous process in itself, particularly when things which were meant to be kept private are shared with others. Again, you think it's just between you and your boyfriend or you and your girlfriend, there's always a chance something will get shared. And rather than run that risk, just don't do it, because it's hurtful. Sometimes if someone shares it, just showing it to someone is bad enough. Sometimes images, not sometimes, quite frequently, images have gotten shared all over the place, far beyond where people originally thought that they would go. On top of this, it's illegal. Again, we think, oh, it's just with my boyfriend, it's just with my girlfriend. When cyber pornography became an issue, child pornography is a huge problem, laws were written that didn't take into account all the possibilities. So technically, legally, any image of sexually explicit or highly suggestive image of someone underage is considered child pornography. You can be convicted of producing child pornography by taking a picture. You can be convicted of possession of it by having it on your phone or anywhere in your files. So again, if you think that it's just for fun, it's something you won't get caught at, remember, teens have been jailed under child pornography laws. It's a very dangerous thing to be engaged in. And when things get out, as they always eventually do, the emotional and reputational damage to self and others can be horrendous. And this doesn't apply just to your phones, but to texts, email, attachments, anything like that. The folks at Parent Info talk about the digital tattoo. It's sort of a thought process to use when you're posting stuff online. So it says, what do I look like? What does it make me look like? So again, just as someone might be thinking about getting a tattoo, hopefully you'll wait till you're a little older, but what does it make me look like? Does it really put my best face forward? Is it a cute little unicorn on my shoulder, or is it a swastika on the middle of my forehead? What does it really make me look like? Is this ink permanent? Again, unless you're dealing with henna, ink is going to be permanent, and on the internet, what you put out there is likely going to stay there. Am I giving away too much? Well, again, discretion is good. You can't back things off. There's a tendency sometimes to be confessional. There's even a tendency sometimes, we live in a show-it-all, tell-it-all society. Do you really want that to be hanging around forever online? Would I want this shared about me? You've shared it, you posted it to a few friends. Do you want it loose in the world? Because again, it's not just showing once, it's showing for everyone who will see it afterwards. Again, does it pass the billboard test? This is like my t-shirt test. Is this something you'd wear on a t-shirt around your friends? Is this something you'd want on a billboard with your face next to it beside a busy street? Is this something you would want your grandmother to see? To borrow a line from Homeland Security in dealing with things like this, if you see something, say something. So if a friend is engaged in dangerous internet behavior, it's better to tell a trusted adult than necessarily to confront them directly. Sometimes an adult perspective is needed to help clarify what's going on in these things. If someone on the internet seems to be behaving in a creepy or untrustworthy way toward you, tell a trusted adult. Bring someone in who can evaluate it and help you take appropriate action. To avoid this situation to begin with, don't endanger yourself by acting in a mean behavior online. Again, we think that the internet gives us some insulation. We can say anything. Your right to free speech is one thing, but you can also be prosecuted for for things like slander and libel. So just because one has a right to say something doesn't mean we necessarily should or say it in that way or in that format. Don't encourage others to engage in mean or dangerous activity. So egging your friend on to torment someone else is just as bad as doing it yourself. So with all that in background, where are you going to get a web? Where are you going to build a web page? There are lots of companies out there that offer free web hosting. These usually are supported by ads, usually for the company themselves, but they're great places to build your first web page. They offer you the chance to use the templates that are offered. Most of these are sort of drag and drop templates to fill out. Great place to build your first web page and great experience in doing it. Weebly.com we use at Dominican U. Wix.com is another good favorite one. WordPress is one that it's been around for a long time. Lots of people use, especially for e-commerce. BraveNet, I've heard good things about. One final note, going back to the legal stuff, intellectual property. Just because you find an image that you like on the web doesn't mean that you're free to incorporate it into your site for free. Because images are generated by artists and photographers and things like that, and the way they make their money is by having people pay money to use them. So to just rip them off the web and post them, it's the same as copying a section out of an encyclopedia and turning that in as your research. You're claiming it's yours, you're presenting it as something else, and you're denying the income that someone else deserves on that. In many cases, things can be prosecuted for the unauthorized use of images, or at the very least you might get a cease and desist letter from the artist telling you to take it down. Better to avoid that situation from the beginning. How do you do this? When you Google an image, if you're looking for cat pictures, cute cat picture, go to the image selection, and when you go through the drop downs on tools or more, you use the filter for the image rights. And so you're looking for something that's labeled for reuse. So there are different qualifications on it: general reuse, reuse with modification, reuse without modification, reuse for non-profit purposes. Do you want something that is marked out there as labeled for reuse? That means it's public domain and you're free to use it without any obligation to the people who created the image. So most of these web hosting sites, you design it from a template and then do drag and drop formatting, similar to Word or Google Docs. It eliminates the need to know advanced coding or cascading style sheets, which were a thing for a while. They're limited, but they're generally adequate. And some people sort of find it sort of like using a coloring book. It's like you've got lines that you have to color into, but it's how you do it that makes it special and unique. It's sort of an art form in and of itself. Okay, that pretty much is what we wanted to cover. Oops, sorry about that. Lecture is over. Those are going to be there for a while. And so just wanted to let you know, thank you for your time. See NS Teens for more information and ideas, and just get out there and have fun. Build yourself your first web page. It's a lot more fun to do than to listen to it. So thanks. Have a great day.